Broadcasting live from across the United States, this is the Multitapped Podcast.
Well, everybody, welcome to episode 28 of the Multitapped Podcast. If everything looks a little weird and we all sound a little frazzled, that's because this is like the third or fourth time we've tried to do this now. So, this episode we're going to be talking about arcades and everything to do with them, and I'm pretty excited because, in case you haven't noticed, we have a lot of guests tonight, and it covers quite a wide array of personalities and regions, and it should be a good show. I'm super excited about it. But joining me tonight is, of course, Jay Dubious.
What up?
As well as everybody's very familiar with Wes.
What's up?
We're also joined by Mr. Mike Tendo of Dude, You Haven't Played That Game Yet?
Oh, asshole. Hello, everyone.
We are also joined by Mr. Stephen Wilds, or Bane. He does not have a working camera at the moment, but he is here, I promise.
Someone stole mine, I'm sorry.
And then we are also joined by Ms. Geek Etiquette Amy. So,
hi.
Quite a good group. I'm really excited. All technicalities aside, though, how's everybody doing? Everybody doing all right tonight?
Sure.
Everybody excited? Am I the only one who's super jazzed? I know Dubious is really jazzed. This is when I've been excited.
I just hope the podcast doesn't catch fire again.
Yes, and so far it's been burning water nonstop. I know the guys who are watching it live right now, thank you for bearing with us. But you should have seen some of the layouts that got destroyed. They looked gorgeous. At this point, it was just like, get it together, get it running, let's go. So this is what we're doing. But part of the reason I'm so excited is I'm one of the younger members of Multitapped, and I wasn't exactly around in the golden age of arcades. You know, I wasn't born until 1990, so I never experienced that. But I am an avid Neo Geo collector and a big fan of arcades and, you know, barcades and anything resembling an arcade. So it'll be nice to talk to some people who are actually around for the big boom of it. As we get started, I figure the first thing that we could tackle is I wrote up a brief history on arcades. Now, for those of you who didn't know, technically speaking, what we think of as an arcade is known as an amusement arcade, and the thing that precursed that was penny arcades. Now, I actually didn't know this before I looked them up. I just thought it was a clever name for that one comic in Expo, you know what I mean? But I guess the way arcades worked originally, and we're talking like 1905, 1910, is that there were just these big buildings set up that had just a fuck ton of games in them. Really weird stuff. Non-electrical pinball, love testers, the sort of thing you think about like Simpsons jokes and stuff like that. You know, no actual video games as we technically know or think of them now. But once we get to the 70s and 80s, that's where we finally see the golden age of arcade. And I'm pretty sure that's what everybody here is thinking of when we think of arcade, right? Just rows of cabinets. I mean, video games got really popular in them because of Space Invaders, Pac-Man, Centipede, you know, things like that. And so outside of arcade names, I actually never really had one in my area. What about you guys? How about you, Wes?
Yeah, man, when I was a kid, there were arcades everywhere. The mall had an arcade, and then the building right next to the mall had an arcade. There were arcades in every 7-Eleven, Circle K, gas stations. Yeah, I mean, anywhere you went, there was pretty much an arcade. Bowling alleys. Yeah, dude.
I mean, they got kind of hybridized because, I mean, arcades got so popular. We're talking about specifically cabinets, not even necessarily just like amusement arcades, that places were buying them up everywhere because that's where I always saw them, were at like restaurants and things like that. There was never like a dedicated arcade. Outside of hearing the names Aladdin's Castle, I never saw anyone.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Mike?
Yeah, there was, as far as like, so if you're talking just like individual arcade games in like restaurants and stuff, yeah, we had like the local 7-Elevens had like, you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's this local chain that doesn't really exist around here called Ground Round that had arcade machines. But yeah, that I mean, like, it was just like restaurants. Like, you would walk, it was not uncommon to walk into a restaurant, just like a local middle class family restaurant around the area, and just walk into a room or a location in that restaurant that had, you know, a couple arcade games. You know, some of them would mix them in with like the more like the more casual stuff, like those basketball games that you would throw the basketball in, or like skee ball.
Yeah, like prize games where,
Right.
ticket redemption, all that shit.
Got to get them tickets,
Right.
bro.
Hell yeah. Mustache gnomes.
Yeah.
But what about you, Wilds? Any in your area? I actually don't know where you grew up. I know that Wes and Dubious and I are all Colorado boys, so like, they were never in my area. What about you?
Oh, of course. I live in the South. There were a ton of Aladdin's Castle, as you mentioned, Time Out. Probably the most that I ended up playing is something that Wes keyed on. Is I used to have to go to sit with people in like a bowling league thing, and so there were always a ton of arcade cabinets at the bowling alley, the Pizza Hut, all these restaurants, and like laundromats. Like I actually used to have some friends that they would go to the laundromat, not as much to do laundry or what its intended purpose, but because that was the only place that had the Bad Dudes game at the time. So
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
That's
so they're
funny.
all over the place.
Yeah, because that's how I remember them. Go ahead, Mike.
We had this place called Staples, which was like a giant amusement park sort of thing that you can go, and it was mostly like.
Did they also sell
mini
office
golf.
supplies?
No. No. Oh no, I'm sorry. It was called Scooters. Staples. What's funny is Staples replaced that building. But yeah, this place was called Scooters, and they had, the more traditional amusement stuff that I talked about earlier. But then it was a legitimate arcade. Like if I wanted to go to an arcade, that's where I would go. If I was going to go to local, that or like Chuck E. Cheese, because Chuck E. Cheese actually back in the day, they had old school arcade games. They had like X-Men, they had like Aliens, they had like all that stuff just hanging, chilling.
Now, this was a person that I was really curious about asking too. What was it like for you, Amy? Because you grew up across the pond, so I actually know
Right.
diddly dicks about the EU arcade scene.
Well, from when I was younger, like very similar in the sense that you would find them in like I don't know about restaurants, but I remember seeing them in like the fish and chip shop.
Mhm.
And there would be like one single cabinet that you could play on like while you were waiting for your fish and chips. But otherwise, like say restaurants, I don't remember them being there. Obviously, you've got like the pubs, and they tend to have the slot machines, and I think occasionally they would have an arcade machine as well, like one or two. But that's really all I remember from when I was younger, because I'm not like, I think when I was younger, like they were sort of starting to fade out a bit and not be sort of found in the chip shops and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't remember seeing them all that frequently. But when I did, I was like, oh, yay, there's an arcade machine, I want to play on it. So, yeah.
See, it's funny. I swear, the first two times I was ever exposed to like what an arcade was, period, right? Because, like I said, there weren't any around in my area. Like it was white bread suburban. Oh, sounds like a cat of some sort. But
Yeah.
called it. But the first two times I ever saw an arcade, the first one, and I even mentioned this in the Sonic podcast, there was a contest that SpaghettiOs was running with Sonic the Hedgehog. And they're like, oh man, if you win this contest, we'll take you to this big arcade blowout and you get your own Sonic 2 arcade machine. I'm like, whoa, what the hell is that? That's awesome. That's so cool. And, just ate a bunch of SpaghettiOs because that was the neatest thing I'd ever seen. Obviously, I didn't win, right? And then the other one was one of my parents' family friends was babysitting my sister and myself. And the movie that he put on to just kind of get us to shut up, right, was Wayne's World. And so everything to do with that, Noah's Arcade, it was just like a shtick to me because I never saw them. The first time I ever actually saw an arcade, my family, we were visiting this little mountain town called Estes Park. And the hotel we were staying at next to the pool had a little arcade in there. And the only machine I actually remember playing in there, as weird as this is going to sound, is the Willow arcade game. That was like the one. Is that just me? Did anybody else remember that? Is that like just
is that a beat 'em up game?
No.
It's a side scroller. It's kind of Contra-y, but swords and shit.
I didn't even know there
I've
was a
only
Willow
ever seen
arcade
it
game.
once. Yeah, I've only ever seen that once in Atlanta. That was it.
It was totally different from the NES game.
Yeah, it was fun.
Was it still made by Capcom?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right.
But yeah, you know, it wasn't until things like Dave and Buster started getting really popular that I saw arcade games. I guess it was Las Vegas too. I have really fond memories, and I'm sure this is a game that we're going to get into extensively, so I'll go ahead and bring it up now. Was the first time my family ever went to Las Vegas, we stayed at Circus, and the entire fucking time, all I did was play the Simpsons arcade game.
Oh, yeah.
Come on now. That has to be a popular one here. Anybody else like that one?
Of course.
yeah.
Well, I was actually just streaming it last night.
Probably took most of my money.
I reviewed that game.
I don't know. It's one of those games that for me, it just feels really classic. It's not necessarily super innovative or anything like that, but it's really clean and it's fun, and it was a game I always really enjoyed.
Over the years, it's been. I would honestly say the Simpsons arcade is like, over the years, it's always been my favorite beat 'em up game of all time. Like, it has such iconic sound effects to it too. Like, I remember when you were playing it when you're playing it on a machine, especially back then before all the speakers were blown. Like, when you would hit an enemy and it had that sound or whatever, it was so bassy.
Yeah, you would hear it throughout the whole freaking building.
Yeah, it was
arcade
awesome.
Was always loud.
Yeah,
No, we were talking about that last night. Like Dubious and I, because I said it on some of his stream. Like, that really was the classic game that I probably always started with. Whenever I went to an arcade, I usually started with some kind of beat 'em up. And The Simpsons, you know, I beat it tons of times, but I'd still go back and play it.
Yeah,
it feels so fun. It's funny that you mentioned the sound design, because the one that really sticks in my head, and this is probably just because a lot of my exposure was being fucking bad at it because I'm a kid, is the Bart getting hit sound, the "ay caramba!" Like, that's the one that like rings in my ears, you know what I mean? But God, that game is so fun. I really like the visual aesthetic too. Vaporwave aesthetic. But no, just the fact that, yes, it's 8-bit and it's retro because that's when it came out, but like each level looks really distinct. Like, they all have different color palettes, they all have different backgrounds. Like, it felt, and I still think this holds true, it's like a good varying of settings, you know?
It's definitely like the color palette's like amazing because it's super bright, draws you in, super colorful, and considering when that arcade machine was made, The Simpsons had only been airing for 2 years at that point. Mm-hmm. So there's like no source material for them to go on. So you see a lot of like original characters drawn in the Matt Groening style that don't actually exist in the Simpsons universe, which is super interesting about it.
Yeah. Does that wrestler guy actually exist in the Simpsons universe?
Yeah, he does.
He does? The 1-1 boss or whatever
so.
he is?
Yeah.
He's Bart the Daredevil. That's the episode he's in. They're watching a wrestling match, and he's the heel wrestler. He pulls out a wrench out of his Speedo or whatever and nails the guy when the ref isn't looking, and he wins the match. But yeah, that was his only appearance on the TV show, was Bart and Homer watching the match on TV. But he was an actual character.
This I can't remember or not. Is the game old enough that it still has black Skinners, or is it yellow Skinners in the game?
It's yellow.
Okay,
Skinner was only black for one episode.
Was it only one episode?
Yeah.
I thought it was the first season.
It does. What was Matt Groening's previous, like, My Life in Hell or something like that?
Life is Hell.
Life is Hell, yeah.
Yeah,
and it draws from that
around,
actually quite a bit, too, just because they didn't have enough content.
I actually am really not that big of a fan of the Simpsons arcade game. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's pretty good. But to me, I spent so much time with X-Men, like that and Ninja Turtles were both
Ninja Turtles, yeah.
That was it, man, for me. I also really liked pinball games, but I only liked a few of them. And the one that really stood out to me was the Mario Brothers pinball game.
Ooh, yeah, you don't see that one. You don't see that one around much.
Made by Gottlieb back in the day. Like
I kind of remember it, but I never played pinball.
I didn't play it that much. Yeah. I mean, but that one specifically was so much fun because it was Mario themed, so it was really cool.
See, that's funny. I've never actually seen that machine. Like, as a kid, I wasn't ever really into pinball, but in my adult life, pinball is something I really come to appreciate. There was this is a kind of funny story. when medical weed got legalized in the state, there was just this dispensary about 20 minutes from me who rented out a pinball museum for all of their patients, and we all got to go up there, and that was crazy. Because that pinball museum had, the Who, it had the Lord of the Rings, it had Goliath, right? That's the one that uses the 8-ball for instead of a pinball, isn't it Goliath? Had Magic Shop, all of those. But I didn't even know that there was a Mario pinball game. It doesn't surprise me, but I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah. No, it's pretty rare. I mean, it's hard to find nowadays.
You don't even... Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen it, like, in the modern times. Like, even at, like, Portland Retro Gaming Expo, where there's, like, 100 pinball machines, you don't even see that one there.
Yeah, that one... I've played it a handful of times.
Doesn't 1-Up in Lodo have it?
I don't
The one on Colfax or the one in Lodo?
Lodo.
I don't think I've seen it there.
I could have sworn they had a Mario pinball game.
I know when I was there with Benny, he played every single pinball game there.
So he would be a good person to ask. I don't remember seeing it, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's just, I don't know, man. Pinball's really fun. It's just nothing that, when I was a kid, it never seems as appealing. It didn't have, like, I don't know. There wasn't a screen. I guess
exactly.
Is what it boiled down to.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I actually got real into pinball around, what was it, about 1996-ish. There was a laundromat down on 38th Street down in downtown Denver that we would go do our laundry at. And, I mean, you're a kid sitting at a laundromat. It's like the boringest thing ever. But they had that separate arcade room, and I remember playing... there was the Terminator 2, and then later on they got the South Park pinball machine, which has consistently been one of my favorite pinball titles of all time. I don't know if you guys have played the South Park one, but it's sick.
Played the South Park one extensively. That's a good one. That was one that they had at Portland last year, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they also have it at they have it at Pinball Jones in Fort Collins, and they also have it at Ground Control in Portland. Which, okay, I've been to too many arcades too many barcades across this country, apparently.
That's the thing we'll get into too when we talk about the resurgence of arcades, is how much barcades rock. But I'm kind of surprised more people haven't played the South Park pinball game, because that's one I've seen a lot. I know the Lions Pinball Museum has
We're also
one.
from Denver, though.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. When you're from Colorado, South Park is a little bit different, and by a little bit different, I mean a million times better. But back to arcades, it's kind of funny you mentioned this, Mike, because I was going to talk about it too. I collect Neo Geo, you know what I mean? I made the specific decision that, like, if I'm going to get any arcade cabinets, I'm just going to get a fucking MVS, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But there is 3 games that if I found the actual cabinet for, I would buy them, and Six-Man X-Men is one of those. If I ever saw that, oh my god, dude, I'd pull money out of my retirement and put that bitch in my garage. Fuck the taxes.
So, I actually had a shot at getting a 6-player X-Men arcade from my hometown, believe it or not.
Oh, man.
And I just didn't have the money.
Yeah.
And, it's just... I also was living in a 1-bedroom apartment. And I just, at the time... And, now I own a house, so I could technically have it. But I have changed my stance on arcade games in terms of which ones I would own. And I actually plan on talking a little bit more about arcade. I'm going to be doing a video on like arcade games that never made it to console, specifically beat 'em ups. And I'll mention it now since we're talking about this.
You're about to say Battletoads? I swear to God, if you're about to say Battletoads.
No, Battletoads came out. Super
technically
Battletoads.
because of Rare Replay.
It's Rare Replay, right? No, I'm talking literally no ports. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Capcom beat 'em up. Fan-freaking-tastic.
I would add the Punisher game to that, because although it had video game console ports, the console ports were nothing like the actual arcade game.
Yeah, I would agree with that too.
They were similar. I mean, in the sense that you could take on, the role of Punisher. But I think
Fury.
Right.
Could you play as Nick Fury in the
player too?
The second player was Nick Fury.
Oh, on the Genesis one? Oh, I don't remember. I think the Genesis one might only be one player. I think you can select either Punisher or Nick Fury.
Yeah.
think.
It's just that even the Genesis one, which is much closer, it wasn't the same. Like it was that there's just something so much cooler about that arcade.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have made a better SNES port.
A lot of beat 'em ups are better on the Super NES, and I think it's just because graphically you have a lot more that you can work with. But there were some pretty good Genesis arcade conversions. Wasn't Double Dragon pretty good, if I recall?
What, the arcade?
Yeah, no, the Genesis port.
Oh, yeah, I love it, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, some people shit all over it, but, like, it's the closest thing I can play to the arcade, so I like it, man.
The NES game is totally different. If you're talking arcade faithful, the Double Dragon NES port is the least arcade faithful.
Yeah, for sure.
The game that I played the most probably on my NES when I first got it, one of them was Double Dragon, and then I found the arcade game and thinking it was going to be like the same thing but better graphics, and it was just, it's so much different.
Yeah, I honestly prefer the NES version too, because that's the one I was exposed to first.
That's funny because I grew up with the Double Dragon arcade, and then it came out on the NES later, and I was disappointed that it wasn't like the arcade.
I didn't play any Double Dragons until the second one, and I played it on the NES, so I didn't really have that. I didn't have that many arcade experiences super early on. I mean, when Ninja Turtles was big, like 88, 89, 90, like that was right around the time when Ninja Turtles was huge, and I think that was one of the first arcade games that I had ever played. Was the original Ninja Turtles arcade game. So, and I mean, it came out and it was there, and we would go and like all the kids would go and we would play it.
Oh yeah.
We would have one of our friends' parents bring a bunch of kids out to eat or whatever with their family, and then we would all just go and play the arcade game while the parents talked. Like, that's how it went.
See, I remember a Ninja Turtle arcade game, because I'm pretty sure there's been more than one, right?
There's two.
There's been
Turtles in Time.
Two?
Yeah.
Okay, it might have been Turtles in Time then, because eventually around middle school we got a Chuck E. Cheese in my area, and we went by like once, and the only game I ever remember playing there was the Ninja Turtles game and getting my ass whipped by the Chompers, I want to say they are. The little dog robot
that's not Turtles in Time. That's the arcade.
Is that the original?
Yeah.
Yeah, because those things kicked the shit out of me. I was not ready for that.
Well, I remember, like, dude, that Ninja Turtle game, especially the original arcade one, I didn't really play Turtles in Time that much, but that original arcade was so hot in the streets back then. And I remember...
Oh, God, yeah.
I remember back before the NES port came out. And, like, I remember I'd go to the arcade, I was like, fuck, I just want this game to come to NES so I can play it at home, and then we get the NES version, and that was, like, the coolest thing when that came out. Even though that port's pretty shitty compared to the arcade when you compare them nowadays.
So the best...
the arcade... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The arcade version... we used to go to this putt-putt golf place, and I'm an albino. I can't go outside and be out in the sun for a long time, and so all the other kids would go out there and play putt-putt golf, but I couldn't unless it was like, certain time of night or whatever. So, like, I'd go inside and play Turtles in Time, because the arcade only had... like a few, but like, I don't know, Turtles in Time was one I could beat under a certain amount of, like, I could usually beat it for like $3 or $4, and so I would always play the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike, it's fine.
So it's interesting for how many games got converted over to console, and you would hear about them kind of through the, like, Nintendo Power Grapevine, or like Game Pro, or whatever magazine you were reading back in the day at the time. But you didn't really know about arcade games coming out. Like, there was no magazine, there was no internet, there was no newspaper that would have any information on arcade games. It was literally just the arcade was like a destination that you would go to. So the place that I mentioned earlier, Scooters, it was like one of those places that you would go to for a birthday party. Like, one of your friends would have a birthday party and you would go, or like one of the kids in your class had a birthday party and the parents would invite every kid in the class, and regardless of if you liked the kid or not, you would go just because it was at the arcade. So we would go to this place, Scooters, and you would see all the new games that were coming out. So it's just, I couldn't picture having the technology that we have now and going to the arcades with the same wonder and experience that we had back in the day. It was just completely different than anything you could have ever. That's why, like, when Donovan, when you're like, oh well, you know, I was too young to experience any of that. Like, that's just mind blowing to me, because now like you have the internet and you have all these things, so you could just be like, oh, let me just Google this arcade game. Oh, cool. But to us, like, it was an experience to go to the arcade, because you would show up and there'd be all these new games that you had no idea existed. So it was literally like you finding out that, like, the best thing ever exists.
But
you know
see,
what I mean?
but I would like to make a comment there, because while I didn't have anywhere near the same exposure or experience, it was very much still a magical fucking thing. Because like the nearest arcade was a Noah's arcade that was, I don't know, 45 minutes away from the house. I maybe got to go to once. And remember, my parents weren't like super into exposing me to video games as a kid. Like, they were extremely, extremely hesitant about it. So in my head, it was just like, you mean there's a building with video games and you can just go play them? What are you talking about? I want to live there! Like, so
it was my
whenever
favorite
I
place
actually
to
got
go as a kid.
Yeah, like, you know, I would go to a pizza place and it would be like, holy shit, there's like a Cabela's Hunt Club game. This is great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even the bad games, it was just so exciting because I never got to see them, you know what I mean?
It's just funny, the generational gap, though, because how old are you? I forget.
I turned 26 this year. I was born in 1990.
You're the same age as my brother. My brother turned, he in March, he just turned that. So I'm 33. And so I was born in 83, so by 93 I was 10 years old. So a couple years after that, I would say I would go in like a Pizza Hut, and there'd be like a Metal Slug cabinet. There'd be like a Neo Geo cabinet with like Samurai Showdown,
Windjammers.
No, I was gonna say Bubble Bobble, but not Bubble Bobble. The other game, the pop game.
Oh,
Bust a Move.
Yeah. There you go.
Man, everywhere I'd Bust a Move. That was like the most common game back in the day.
That's funny. You're literally listing the games I have in my Neo Geo right now. It's Metal Slug 4, funny. Samurai Showdown 4, Bust a Move, and Windjammers.
That's hilarious.
And
Slug.
Fatal Fury 2, because that game is weird as shit.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And so you would go and you'd play these games. Like, I would go on trips with my family to places that I'd never been to, and like I'd show up at like a Domino's, and just chilling in the Domino's like area would be like the Superman arcade game. And I remember having a blast with that, and I didn't like Superman. Like, I'm just hanging out, chilling, playing this random Superman game that I'd never heard of, never seen. So it was a really crazy thing to be able to go to these places and just start playing arcade games. I remember the first time I played like Mortal Kombat. I was on a trip to visit my grandfather in Florida, and so we're traveling south, and we keep seeing these signs for this place, south of the border, south of the border. And I'm like, what is south of the border? Well, south of the border is basically like this giant tourist trap, but it's really cool because you get there and it's like illegal. Like, you could buy illegal fireworks, which you can buy in Connecticut. All this crazy stuff that you can get, and they had an entire building devoted to arcade machines. And I walk in, and front and center is the first Mortal Kombat game. It had just come out, and I was just like, what is this? I need this in my life. And it's just crazy.
I was going to bring that up when you were talking about how, like, when you go into arcades and you didn't know what to actually expect, like, from month to month, because there was always new shit coming out, old shit leaving. I remember, it was like around like 1993 when the fighting games craze was like really starting to hit, and I saw Street Fighter 2 for the first time inside of the arcade, and I was like, oh my god.
93?
Well, maybe it was a little bit earlier. I don't know.
Turbo Street Fighter Turbo was out by then, man.
92.
That's true.
It was 90.
Possibly
It
earlier.
came out in 90.
92.
Street Fighter 2 came out in 91.
Okay, it was probably like 91 then when I was playing it, but
I'm thinking of the Super Nintendo port though, because I didn't play Street Fighter 2 until I rented the Super Nintendo version, and you could not get it in stores. Like I went to
it was sold out everywhere.
gross-
I think it was like the hottest game
everywhere.
ever, dude.
You couldn't buy it. You couldn't rent it. I got lucky and was able to rent it after somebody returned it to. I called everywhere, and I ended up getting it at a Stop and Shop, which for those of you who are from the Northeast area, Stop and Shop's basically like a giant grocery store, like a Food Lion or whatever you guys have out there.
Yeah.
And Kroger, but huge, like giant.
Ralph's.
And they had a little area that you could go and you could rent VHS tapes and you could rent video games. And Street Fighter 2 had just come back, so that was the first experience I ever had. I didn't play it in the arcades first. I played Mortal Kombat in the arcades first.
See, Street Fighter 2 that's crazy because I had been playing it at the arcades for like a year or so.
Oh wow!
And I went this was in 92 on my summer vacation. I went to Guatemala for a month. And I come back, and all of a sudden, two of my friends had the Super Nintendo. They have Street Fighter 2. We didn't even know it was coming out. So I come back after a month out of the country. I come back in, and they left me a bunch of fucking voicemails, doing the sound test and shit, just to make me jealous. And of course, it worked. But then when I saw it, and it looked almost exactly like the arcade. I sold my Genesis and shit.
Wow!
I went and got a Super Nintendo and got Street Fighter 2. Man.
That's funny.
But I had been playing it at the arcades and wasting God knows how much money on it for probably a year at least.
Wow!
And it was such a big deal when that game came out.
Oh yeah, no, it was huge.
Home consoles, man.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I played Street Fighter 1. I used to play Street Fighter 1 at the same 7-Eleven that had Double Dragon right next to it. So I used to go to Taekwondo class, and after Taekwondo class, there was a 7-Eleven right next to it. I would go over there with some of the other kids from the class, and we would play Street Fighter. We were doing Taekwondo for real, and then we go and play it on a fucking
yeah.
And then Double Dragon as well, man. We played the hell out of those games, and I always get memories of that 7-Eleven and that time when I played either of those two games. But yeah, when I saw Street Fighter 2 come out, I was just holy shit.
It was such a game changer.
Yeah,
Oh,
dude,
yeah.
it changed everything.
And then after that,
Previous-
man, sorry, what?
I was gonna say real quick. You brought up something about games leaving. I remember when stuff like Mortal Kombat and some others started coming in. I was one of the few people I always had a few games that you would go in and you'd be sad that the game that you wanted to go back and play. And I remember when my arcade they got rid of RoboCop because some jackass cracked the screen. So they got rid of that one, and they got rid of Moonwalker because it was a 3-person game, but it took up a ton of room.
Those Moonwalker
when
cabinets
they had
are
it.
big.
Yeah, and so I remember going in, and eventually you find new games, but I always hated when they got rid of the game you were working on at the time, or the game that you really enjoyed playing.
Yeah, that was.
Did anybody ever go to a doctor's office or a dentist's office to play arcade games?
I can't say I did.
never heard of that.
Heard of that. No.
So when I was probably 11 or 12, I started getting braces. So I would go to the orthodontist, and in the orthodontist's office, he had Donkey Kong 3 and the original Space Invaders.
Oh.
And I looked forward to those visits so much because I would get to hang out. Because doctors, they're always they take forever. So I would hang out and play 20 minutes, 30 minutes worth of Space Invaders, and then I'd jump over to Donkey Kong 3, and it was cool.
Man, I got a funny story. I don't know what why I just thought of it, but I remember it was my freshman year of high school, and I always had I had the worst open period. I had it was like period 3, like there were 4 periods before lunch, and my third period was always open. It was just like the worst time to have an open period. So I used to walk down to the 7-Eleven kind of close to the high school, and they got Knights of the Round in there.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, hell yeah, because I already liked my Capcom beat-em-ups, and I'd never seen it. And I'm, plugging quarters into it, playing it, having fun with my friends, and all of a sudden, it just turns off. I'm like, what the fuck? And the guy working the counter at 7-Eleven shut it off because we were cursing too loud at the game.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I just put all that money into it. And
you son of
he's like, if you guys can't speak like gentlemen, you can't play. And that was that's the story.
I'd steal shit.
Sounds like
if someone did that,
shitty
I'd just steal some shit from that 7-Eleven. Fuck those guys.
Yeah, well, those quarters just paid for this candy bar, bitch.
Well, that's the thing, though, about arcades is I think the reason that they continued to flourish for so long is pretty simple. I mean, the social gathering element that unites all of us to kind of interact with one another. I mean, our natural habits allow us to meet and share common interests. So, like when the home market crashed, you had 2 things that happened. Either gamers were focused on 8-bit computers, especially in the UK, like the Spectrum, the Amiga, and Commodore 64, and Geek, you'll probably back me up on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Either that, or it went social and people started going to arcades. So, as the years dragged on, home consoles kind of returned to the foray, thanks to Nintendo and Sega, at least in Japan, or rather in the UK. But the arcades were still pretty booming. I mean, even in the UK, they had major companies like Sega. They had a Sega World of London, which was traveling up the rocket escalator was the equivalent to an on-land roller coaster, which is crazy. New York had the Chinatown Fair, which it's all these places are getting silenced. So, I'm trying to think of when Sega World closed, but I always wanted to go there. That was one of those ones that I wanted to check out and just never had the opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing about these older arcades for me and what attracted me to go to them is that the arcades looked so much better.
They were just so much cooler in the home.
Yeah, they sounded better. They looked better. And my friends they would always tease me I had Ghosts and Goblins on the NES at home, but when we went to Aladdin's Castle, I would always play Ghosts and Goblins on the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
They're what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's so much cooler playing it on here.
We did the same thing with Mortal Kombat. We used to still, even when other Mortal Kombats were coming out, we'd go to the arcade and we would almost always jump on Mortal Kombat 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we had the local roller derby in my area that I think is closed at this point. But yeah, that's the first time I ever played Mortal Kombat 2 was there in the arcade area of it.
Do you guys remember when Killer Instinct came out?
I was literally just about to say that.
But I remember the Super Nintendo one.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I played the arcade one a bit. Well, I think I played the arcade one before the Super Nintendo one came out, and it just made me even more hyped for the Super Nintendo one.
Well, that specifically because you guys are talking about Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and saying all that. There was a theater down the street from my house, and they had one of those, Golden Tee golf machines or whatever, and then they had Killer Instinct, and I just remember being this game has skelly dudes. This game has fucking werewolves. It's got ice, bro. This is an awesome game. Take my quarters. That was the real arcade fighter that I remember.
You were channeling a little Lucius T there.
Let's just say I've got a lot of Lucius T in me.
Heyo.
Hey. There we go.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Out of curiosity, Amy, because we've been rambling about fighting games and things like that. What were you to at the arcade? What are some Amy arcade games?
Okay, so when I was going to the arcade, because I mostly played at home on the Amiga and stuff, and it was only I can't remember what year it was, but it would have been around 95, maybe 96, that I was living in an area where I could go to the arcade. It was only like 10 minutes down the road. So I'd have like my sister escort me down so that, obviously I couldn't go on my own. And I used to play Tekken 2.
Yeah.
And Daytona Racing. I'm trying to think what else I used to play. I to be honest, I used to just go around those two mostly and just go back and forth between them. But I really loved the penny machines. So the like the ones that like push the pennies and then like drop a prize.
With the like shelves, and it's just like, those are great.
Yeah. And I used to spend I used to go down with say like £1, which is like let's just say $1 like equivalent, and then I used to come back with like half of it, and I'll be like, yes, I got this, I earned this, like I won this money back, even though I'd like lost money, and then I would use that money to go and play on the arcades again. So it was like a kind of like, to me in my mind, it was a win-win situation. But yeah, it was mostly just Tekken 2, Daytona, and eventually like House of the Dead, Time Crisis.
Oh yeah, the rail shooters.
So like
Crypt Killer.
So like
Anybody?
Yeah.
Crypt Killer.
Can't
I
say I
remember
remember
that one.
See,
I think it was called Crypt Killer. It was Sega. It was like a kind of like a House of the Dead.
Of course it
kind
was.
of
Of course
or
it was.
Namco. It might have been. It was either Sega or Namco. I can't remember.
One of the two for sure.
See, it's funny because you guys mentioned games you had sunk quarters into, right? For me, by far, the arcade cabinet that has taken the most money out of my wallet, no question, is, I want to say House of the Dead 3, whichever one gives you the shotguns and is the big-ass sloth and shit in it.
Right.
That one. I was visiting my friend Garrett out in Las Vegas, and this was when the Sahara was still a hotel. And we were seeing the amazing Jonathan perform. And we were sitting there, like, wasting time waiting to see this comedy magic deal. We're like, oh, they've got a little arcade. Let's check it out. And I swear to God, I ended up pumping in, like, $20, $30 just trying to get through House of the Dead. Just like, no, I'm going to do this. Just because, man, I love those games. They feel so good. I like the plastic in your hands. It's kind of funny that you mentioned Daytona, too, Amy, because I'm not generally a person that likes racing games that much, but they are so fun in an arcade.
Yeah, definitely. What I used to love
especially
as
the
well,
haptic feedback, like on the wheel.
Yeah, and what I used to love, because I was like, when I was playing like Daytona, because I was playing Daytona maybe like a little bit earlier. I can't quite remember the time, but I would have been about 6 maybe, like, and I remember playing it, and at the time I thought I was really good, but I think there was a setting where you can have like kind of like assisted, like automatic and gear change and what have you, and like assisted steering, which at the time I didn't know that was like, because I couldn't really read that well and whatever, bit slow, and yeah, so I had that setting on and I didn't know. So then when I was winning, and I was playing against random people, like I remember this one time I was playing it and there was all these lads just watching and just sort of like hovering around me, and there was me, and then I remember at the end of the race, like I'd won and I was like gloating. I just sort of went like that at the end and put my name in at the top. It felt amazing. That's one thing I loved about going around the arcades, is being like a 6-year-old girl, because I grew up with video games. Like pretty much as soon as I could, I had a Commodore and the Amiga just pretty much shoved in my face, and the Master System. So having that feeling, like knowing that wasn't really a known thing for like a 6-year-old or a girl under 10, being able to actually be kind of decent, because I was decent at other ones. Just Daytona, I did have the assisted steering, but at the time I felt great.
Oh yeah, I would have gloated. Don't feel too bad about that. That would have been sweet. Then when everybody gets mad, you can just laugh at them.
She brings up an interesting point. One of the arcades we used to go to, we had a couple of guys that would always come in, and they were pretty much sharks. Like you actually brought up, like,
oh, dude, I remember the
Killer
sharks,
Instinct.
dude.
Yeah,
Especially Killer Instinct.
Oh, most of the fighting games, but like Killer Instinct, and I used to get whooped up on that. But one game I was actually pretty good at Soul Edge, and so they did like a Soul Edge tournament at the arcade, and I made it. I made it to round 3, which was like by that point I think we were down to like 16 people or something like that, and I really thought of like, oh man, I'm going to get to the next round and I'm going to have to fight these guys that I knew were like, pros. Like they were the best guys. You'd watch them sit there and just do ultra combos all day and stuff like that. And I'm like, maybe they're not really good at this game yet. Like maybe I can win. And I ended up losing in round 3 to like some 8-year-old kid who was button mashing. So I never made it to find out. But I always remember, like those guys, like, because you knew who they were, because they would sit there and they'd only get like $1 worth of quarters and it'd last them all day because they would just keep beating everybody. And if you remember a game called Mace: The Dark Ages, which was another fighting game, most people don't remember it, but they had the arcade that we had, Time Out, they had like this tournament thing when it came out, and like both of the guys that I knew were like kind of sharks there, man, they didn't pay for shit because they kept winning. Like they just kept winning everything. It was crazy.
Dude, I thought that came out on the N64. I didn't know that came out in the arcade.
It was an arcade first, and then it came out on N64. I have it.
Makes sense.
It's okay.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a Midway game, so.
Speaking of Midway and arcade versus console, this'll explain how little I was exposed to old arcades and old video games. The first time I ever saw, like, I want to say it was Gauntlet Legacy. It might have been Dark Legacy or whatever it was. I don't remember. But the first time I ever saw that in arcade, I was like, wow, this new and unique Gauntlet game is pretty neat. I'm surprised more people aren't playing this. Like, the first time I saw it on the N64, I was like, whoa, holy shit. And then, just finding out about it.
Gauntlet Legends was an amazing game, too, especially if you're playing with friends.
Oh man, that game was so much fun. Just that style of game too. The older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated games like that, and it's just that constant grind feel. I always really liked those games. It's just funny because, at least personally, I don't think I have any bad arcade memories. Like every single time I ever went, like I always had so much fun, even if I was losing money.
The only time it's bad is if the sharks are fucking with you, man.
Yeah. But see, even then, I'm like a little bit of a shark. Katie had never been to an arcade, so last year when we went to Las Vegas, we stayed at Circus, and we hung out in the arcade a whole bunch out by the fucking carousel bar, and I sharked the shit out of a bunch of kids on Marvel vs. Capcom 2. They had like a beautiful Marvel vs. Capcom machine. I'm like, babe, you want to see something funny? Like,
so it's interesting you bring up Marvel too. Fighting games, like, there's certain ones that I can totally play without a problem in the arcade, specifically like the older Mortal Kombat games. I can't play like any other fighter in the arcades.
I have such a hard time doing semicircle based fighting games. I have such a hard time playing those in the arcade. And like the pros all use sticks, but I'm like, I kind of playing Street Fighter 4 on Xbox 360 controller.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I totally am a controller guy. The only games that I really actually legitimately enjoy using the arcade stick is like beat 'em ups, because they're just so easy and button mashing-y, and like if you have like an NES Advantage or a Super NES Advantage or like any of those like arcade sticks or whatever, those are the kind of games that I like.
You guys ever play one of those Play Choice systems, the Play Choice 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, they pissed me off. I hated those things.
They suck because they're timed, and then the game glitches out and you're done. That sucks. But.
Right. Well, they knew that kids who had memorized these games, could put in a quarter. Like I could dominate Mega Man 3. So you give me maybe 2 quarters and I'll beat the whole game. Like that's just how it was.
I unlearned myself on arcade sticks. Like I used to do exclusively like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, always use the arcade stick, and then we kind of just quit going to arcades because the consoles caught up, and then I basically untrained myself on using a stick, and I started training myself on a controller. And then I had a roommate who was really good at fighting games, and he used an arcade, like a stick, And I was like, oh, I'll get back into it. I'll buy a arcade stick for the console and everything. And I tried using his, and it felt so alien, and it was so odd that, like, I knew I used to be good with an arcade stick, and I couldn't anymore.
There's just a totally different feeling when it comes to arcades. I mean, just the smell, the look, the feel. It used all your senses. It wasn't like buying a game and trying it out at home, because it's a completely different atmosphere. I remember being in 6th grade and having going over a friend of mine's house, and he would have Mortal Kombat on the Genesis, which I owned a Super Nintendo, he owned a Genesis. So I would go over his place and we would play Mortal Kombat. And it was cool, I enjoyed it, but it was a totally different experience going into an arcade. It was like a place and a feeling of wonder. There's no way to describe it. Like, you would hear this, especially with arcades that had like tons and tons of games. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if you guys have been to Fun Spot, but Fun Spot is basically like the mecca of arcade machines. It's, I think, the largest arcade in the country, if not the world. Fun Spot in New Hampshire. And I've gone a couple times over the years. In fact, I had my my bachelor party.
Oh yeah, I remember those pictures.
Laconia, New Hampshire.
Yeah, Laconia, New Hampshire. And Fun Spot is just incredible. I mean, they have a great like bunch of games. I mean, you're talking like at least a couple hundred arcade machines and stuff all over the place, like Sega, Namco, old stuff. They have like the very first arcade game, like what's it called, Computer Space or whatever. Okay. Computer Space, the one that was made by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney. So it's just incredible. It's an amazing place. You walk in there and it's literally like walking back in time. And it's cool because you see that there's other people there and they're all there doing the same thing that you're doing. So it's like, that's the real reason why arcades died, is because people stopped going because, like you said earlier, Wilds, consoles caught up. So it's like, once consoles caught up completely, like, and then online gaming basically killed it too, because now if you want to play games online, like let's say you wanted to boot up, I don't know, the Dungeons and Dragons arcade games that came out, those came out on console fairly recently within the past couple of years, and they had online play.
Yeah.
So from the comfort of your own home, you wouldn't have to move and you could still play the same game. So like that's the issue, is if you want to have arcades come back, you've got to release new types of games that don't exist in a console capacity.
And another thing is, as arcades started to get expensive too, man, they started like 50 cents. I think there were some that even were like $1.
Some of them were $1. Yeah, like if you go to Dave & Buster's, most of the games, like the good.
Do you remember how much
like
Time Crisis? Like Time Crisis was like the first one that was like $1 every time.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, but that's got a pedal.
Surprising.
Come on, that's got a pedal.
Oh man, Time Crisis too. You want to talk about light gun arcade games?
That was a good one.
That one was hot in the streets back then, man. God, Time Crisis 2, so sick.
Yep.
Well,
Time Crisis was fun.
It's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because once again, to get back to the timeline, that's kind of why arcades died out in the 90s, is like, with the exception of 3D fighters like Virtua Fighter and things like that, there wasn't really anything big coming to the arcade that you couldn't get at home, so they kind of just died out. And then we get to the 2000s and, modern, and we start seeing Barcades and Dave & Buster's and places like that. And the stuff I enjoy the most nowadays, and I mean, don't get me wrong, when I go to like Press Play in Boulder or something like that, I'm playing pinball or ancient ass like Rampage shit like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But 4-player Pac-Man at Dave & Buster's is so fun. And like, it's kind of like that. It has to be an experience you can't necessarily get at home. Like, you could do like 4-player Pac-Man on a TV at home, but it's not the same as this big like wall-sized fucking TV blasting lights at your face.
It's fun too because strangers always play with you. Like if you want to plunk a quarter into that 4-player Pac-Man, I guarantee you.
I've only seen the tabletop version.
Yeah, I've only seen the tabletop one too. Because what is it? 1UP has the tabletop version, and so does Ground Control in Portland.
Dude, the Dave &
Ground Control is awesome.
Ground
Yeah, it
control's
is.
sick. But
That
the
was
Dave
a great
Buster's,
place.
The Dave & Buster's out here has like a, I mean, we're talking wall size, like solid 10 foot by 10 foot, maybe bigger, just straight screen for 4 players.
Damn, really?
I'll take a picture next time
Which
I go.
the
It's
one in
sick.
Westminster or?
Yeah, by the promenade. It's sick as fuck.
Damn.
They got a Mario Kart DX too, which
Those
speaking of
modern Mario Karts are so sick.
Okay,
Yeah,
those are
dude,
great.
they're pretty
out of
fun.
curiosity, who here has played the arcade Mario Karts? Amy, have you touched those?
I
I
have.
have.
Not at all.
I have.
Bane?
No, I wish.
Oh my god, okay, so I'll break it down for you guys since all of us
They were made by Namco too, which is weird.
Uh huh.
they're fucking sick. So there's two of them. There's actually two of them now. And they are expensive as shit to get. But it's like a 2-car setup and it's Mario Kart, right? And they take like your little picture at the start of your race and you like get an icon for it on the minimap and shit like that. But you get like a randomized cart and like randomized weapons. You have like 3 types of weapons you can pick up, and it's all randomized. And you can select your characters, and then you can even do co-op fusion carts. But the point is like it's this really arcadey Mario Kart because everything's randomized. Like you pick your character, but your cart that you're gonna get, like the upgrades are randomized for it. The fucking weapons are all insane. It's the craziest experience I've ever played because it feels really arcadey. And when you think of like kart racers, to me at least, they don't come off as arcadey. I think of games like Daytona or Harley Davidson or like Cruisin', you know what I mean? But this game is just like random, super fast paced and flashy, and man, I love those games.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fun.
Man,
and then
that
you
Mario
sit
Kart
down
game
with
is
the
great.
wheel and everything.
Cruisin' USA was sick too in the arcade.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, I mean, online gaming seems to have like a massive chokehold on the gaming industry as far as like social interaction regarding video games. And you know, even though like places like FunSpot are doing what they can to basically be more of a museum than like a live atmosphere, but it's important to help build on the notion that centralized gaming needs top titles that just simply aren't as good as they are at home. Dance Dance Revolution kind of helped with this in like the late 90s and the early 2000s. But even like after years of releases, those titles just kind of began focusing on licensed material instead of like original works of music. So like all the like J-pop stuff that you couldn't get here was replaced with like,
In the Navy.
Kylie Minogue and all that.
I
type of
actually,
stuff.
I actually collect all the DDR games. I have all of them, the home versions.
The home version.
Yeah,
I have
it's-
a couple of them.
I get weird with DDR, man. For like a big,
For the record, it is
for like a big fat
fantastic
guy.
to watch him play. It is great. I've never seen somebody sweat so much in my life. I thought he was gonna die.
For a big fat guy, I get real down on some DDR, dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Well,
seriously.
Speaking of like weird arcade oddities, has anybody here seen the like beachhead machines? Has anybody played any of those?
Oh, what now?
Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll explain it since apparently I'm the only person who's played these. Once again, Dave & Buster's in Broomfield used to have one. So it's like a stationary shooter, right? Except it's like a 3D bubble. Like you physically get in like a vehicle, and it has like mech controls and like a full control panel and everything, and it brings down like a screen in front of you, and like you sit there like rolling around in this bubble, like aiming and shooting like you're a turret at a beachhead, and like that, like the beachhead games. Anybody like? It sounds like Bane knows what I'm talking
Dude, that
about.
sounds awesome, man.
every year I go to this convention called Dragon Con. Geek actually went with me this past year, and they have.
Congratulations, by the way. That was cute.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry.
No, but they have this Mech Warrior game that's done the same way, where you get in this like bubble, and they have screens on each side and everything, and then you have the headset and the gloves that you put on, and it's like $25 to play like one game though. It's crazy, but it's a cool experience. And this year they actually expanded whatever company that brings those in. They got them to bring in like the Street Fighter V arcade cabinets, which you can't hardly find, and then the Pokken tournament cabinet.
I want to see.
There's a Pokken tournament cabinet?
It was a cabinet.
It's like a sit-down thing. It's like
Japan
it's like
gets all that stuff.
Yeah,
That's the
It's
problem.
really weird.
Yeah, like Japan gets all that stuff, like Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, anything else that comes out in arcades, like the new Tekken game. The cabinet that I want more than anything in the world other than Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, would be there was a Castlevania game that came out in the arcades, and it's not the old school
That
ones like
super
Haunted
hard
Castle.
one? Oh, no.
Okay. So when the Wii was out, Igarashi was basically like, we don't want to make a Castlevania game for people that has a ton of motion control in it, because they feel like people are just going to get tired playing the game. So what baffles me about this is they made Castlevania Judgment, which, whatever, some people like it, some people don't like it. Not the point of the story. The point of the story is no, Judgment is the fighting game. So they made a fighting game that has the option for classic controls, or you could do motion controls. But the point of the story is that if you go and check it out, there's an actual Castlevania arcade game that came out shortly after that. That is, you hold this plastic wand thing. It's like one of those ginormous arcade machines, and you hold this plastic wand thing, this light up wand that is attached to the system, the console or the arcade, and you use that wand as a whip.
What?
And you basically whip enemies like a House of the Dead style game.
That sounds so dope, dude.
Yeah,
Seriously? Seriously, really, really cool. And they never brought it to the States. There are very limited ones of these. They're only in Japan, and they're crazy hard to find. So
supposedly there was a prototype or something they did. It was an on rails one that was very similar, where you whip at the screen.
That was probably it.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the one I heard about, they said never got finished. So it sounds like this was something a little bit different. But
this definitely got finished.
Yeah. But they basically described it as House of the Dead with a whip that you control. So.
Yep. No, that did come out, and it came out in arcades.
Oh, crazy!
There's pictures of the arcade machine, and it looks super, super cool. So that's the one arcade machine that I would go broke trying to get.
I think right now actually might be a good time to ask the question, everyone. If you could get one arcade machine, what would you guys get?
That would be it. I mean, reasonably speaking, for me, probably Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. But if I was a millionaire and money was no object, definitely that Castlevania game.
And Popka linked it in chat, by the way, if anybody wants to check it out. It's called Castlevania the Arcade.
And I would get all the other, because I'm a hardcore Castlevania collector, so I would get all the Castlevania arcade games. Haunted Castle, Castlevania the arcade game. I'd even get the pachinko games, too.
Okay, real talk, I've tried to find the Resident Evil pachinko machine. If I could find one, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
My brother actually worked at a pool hall. He was the manager of a pool hall, and when it went under, he got me one of the arcade cabinets from there, which was a 1942 arcade cabinet.
Oh, nice.
And I played it a lot. It was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, eventually the screen died, and we had problems fixing it and all. But after that one died, he's like, I'm going to try to get you a Simpsons arcade cabinet. And he just couldn't. He tried, and we could just never find a working one, or one that they were willing to go down enough on the price.
The screens on those are damaged a lot of times when you find them these days.
Yeah, and so that would probably be mine, or the X-Men arcade game, because I have the X-Men arcade game on my phone. I have it on my 360. I have it on MAME. I play that thing way too much.
See, that's the thing about that game is, I used to feel that way about the X-Men arcade game, but now that I can just jump on Xbox Live and play it with friends, I would just do that instead.
Yeah.
I know that's weird, especially after all the talking that we've been doing about, trying to bring back the arcades and bring in experience, but I've already had that experience with friends, and to the point where when we were in our 20s, me and some friends would go to Chuck E. Cheese and play that same X-Men arcade game that we've been playing since we were little kids, just so we could play it. And we were the weirdos that were these
20-year-olds at a fucking Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, 20-year-olds with beards and everything in Chuck E. Cheese, just hanging out and playing video games. We were those guys. So,
well, what about you, Wes? If you could own one cabinet, what would it be?
Man, probably the Ninja Turtle arcade, because I haven't played that game in years. I mean, it's probably been, I'd say 15 to 20. Oh, wait. No, I played it at 1UP. That's right.
Oh, there you go.
But before that, before I played it at 1UP, I hadn't played it in like 15 to 20 years. And I really don't emulate, I don't play games on my computer. And I really have no way to play the actual arcade at home, that version. What I did is I bought that Ninja Turtles Nexus game for PlayStation 2. Mm-hmm. Because you could unlock the Ninja Turtle arcade.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I bought that game. And then the game was so fucking terrible that I couldn't get to the point and do what you had to do to unlock it.
Battle Nexus is a pretty bad game.
Yeah, so
what about Xbox Live? They have it on Xbox Live?
I don't have Xbox. I've never owned an Xbox in my life, man.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to get that one in. I think it's Battle Nexus 3 or one of the other ones you could unlock, Turtles in Time, right? I was going to get those.
Yeah, I think the third game for the PS2 was the one you could unlock Turtles in Time on.
Those ports are very butchered, though. There's tons of problems with those ports.
Are they?
Yeah.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, they're not worth checking out.
Definitely not worth playing the game for.
No,
that's why I would want that arcade, because I used to play the hell out of that game. I have so many memories of that game. And yeah, it was cool when the NES version came out, but it didn't look just like the cartoon, like the arcade did.
Yeah.
Didn't have the voices and all that stuff.
My big issue with arcades, as far as, and this gets back to the video that I want to do on the 5 beat-em-ups that never came out on consoles. To me, consoles are like a way to preserve arcade games, and even if they're not arcade perfect, like a lot of them aren't, it's still a way to play some form of the game. And these games that didn't get ports, they're just going to completely fade out of existence.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, Night Thrashers, I think it's called. It's like
that's supposed to be a really good one.
Yeah, that one's supposed to be good. Metamorphic Force, Violent Storm, even Battletoads Arcade. I mean,
that would see. My answer was going to be I already own mine since I have an MVS, but like if I were to get a dedicated cabinet, Battletoads would be so sweet, because it's just like that was before Rare Replay. There wasn't any port of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And if you want to talk about, at least in my opinion, some of the best sprite work I've ever seen in a game, like holy shit, dude, Battletoads Arcade is ruthless. That game is straight savage.
Yeah.
Like heads getting crushed and exploded and brains, blood and shit everywhere.
When you fight the giant dudes and it looks like you're punching them right in the nuts, it's just
just straight in the balls. That would be a good dedicated cab. That would be my choice.
And believe it or not, EA published that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, what about you? What about you, Geek?
I've been trying to think, like, while you've been talking, because there's been so many different games. Like, although I played mostly Tekken in the arcades, I also did play as Simpsons, and I did play Turtles as well. So I was kind of like thinking, what do I want to play one of those? And now I'm toying between Dragon's Lair and Robotron.
Oh, Robotron's a good call for sure.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering if the dual stick shooter was going to come up.
So yeah, I was because watching my brother play Robotron, and at his house, he's got a cabinet, but it's a main cabinet, and he's built it all himself and everything, and watching him play, and I'm like, I really want to do that. So I would happily spend hours trying to beat his score, because me and him are actually quite competitive when we get going. And he used to spend like so much money on Dragon's Lair, so it's between those two, and I can't decide. But I think for the competitive side, and the points and the high score, probably Robotron, actually.
Yeah, there's more replay value with Robotron.
You know, what was it, back in 2013 or 2014, I was hanging out with Greg from Arcade Impossible at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the Robotron masters of the world. And I was hanging out with him, and he's like, "Yeah, you want to see some shit?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he pops a quarter into Robotron and gets a 2.7 million score. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen him playing that game on Retro Liberties videos.
See, it's funny you mentioned Robotron because I love twin stick shooters. It's just games I've always enjoyed. You know what I mean? Smash TV was always super fun whenever I played it and shit like that.
Oh yeah.
But the first time I ever saw Robotron was literally last year. It was when Benny came into town before we all went out to Screw Attack and we went down to 1UP and Robotron was down there. And just seeing that machine and just like the fucking colors and
the sounds
that was
too.
An experience, man.
It was so dope, dude.
And then you look up the world records, and it's people like getting all these lives so that they can take like an hour or two nap and then keep going. And it's just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
like,
the Robotron's one of the craziest like competitive games when you start getting into like the dudes who play it for like 7 days on end.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Also, for the record, I don't know if you knew this, Geek, but if you like Dragon Slayer, the DS actually has a direct port of the cabinet. And
really?
Yeah,
The Dragon
the Wii
Slayer?
does. The Wii does as well. The Wii has
does
that
too?
collection. Yeah,
I have it on the PlayStation 3.
It's got a collection of Dragon's Lair 1 and 2, and then
And Space Ace.
Space Ace.
Space Ace, yeah, that's another one as well. But they're both there or thereabouts. But I prefer Dragon's Lair to Space Ace. I found Space Ace actually a lot more difficult than
Really?
Dragon's Lair.
I think it's 10 times easier.
No, I found it difficult. I found it more fast paced as well, and I found that there was a lot more moves in each scene that you would have to do in comparison to Dragon's Lair. But that's just me.
God, I love those Don Bluth games, just the way they fucking look. Oh man, breathtaking.
Yeah.
But what about you, Dubious? You asked the question, but what's your answer? If you were to own one cabinet, what would it be?
I'm gonna get weird with it. Well, so I tell you what, if it's not pinball, like right now, the one I want the most is I want that Big Lebowski pinball. But if we're talking like actual arcade game, I want Tapper.
Tapper?
Tapper, that's the one. I mean,
Yeah,
don't get
I
me
can see
wrong.
that.
Tapper is a good game. I guess that's just not what I'm expecting. What's the logic there?
I really like those old school score attack kind of like 80s arcade games the best. Like that's what I really get into. Like I would say like my second one that I'd want the most is Miss Pac-Man because I actually do kind of play that some semi-competitively. But Tapper's one you don't see it anywhere. And even if you play it on MAME, you don't get the experience of like pulling those beer taps and like moving around like that. It's just so unique and crazy.
That's fair.
You know, I don't think I've actually ever. Now that you mentioned this, and I've been thinking about it. I don't think I've ever played the Tapper cabinet itself. I think I've always played it on like collections.
Dude, the cabinet's amazing. They have one at 1UP in Denver. That's the only one because I go to every barcade in every city I go to usually, and the 1UP in Lodo in Denver is the only one that I've ever actually seen because they don't even have it at Portland Retro Gaming Expo usually, and that has almost everything. But that Tapper. Well, actually, you know what? Come to think of it, I did see one arcade machine at Portland Retro Gaming Expo last year that might be in the running for it. It was a Pac-Man / pinball hybrid game they had there.
Whoa, I don't remember seeing that. What?
Weird.
Yeah, I heard about it because I was at the All Gen Gamers podcast panel at the thing, and I asked the question. I was like, "Did you guys see any like really weird, rare arcade machines set up at this convention this year?" And everybody was like, "You guys got to check out the Pac-Man pinball arcade hybrid thing." It was like where like the controller would normally be was a pinball table, then it's got a Pac-Man table in front of it. Pinball set up with a joystick coming out of the middle of it. It is the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
That sounds fucking crazy, dude.
Yeah, I really hope it's there in a few weeks when we go.
We've seen some of those hybrid ones at Dragon Con a couple times where like they'll have the different screen games, or they'll have like the modified DDR games and stuff like that. And that stuff's not me because that's a lot of hand-eye coordination I didn't sign up for. But some of them are interesting. Like it's just like, oh shit, that guy's doing that, and I'm gonna go over here.
Okay, well here's a question because this kind of plays into just owning one cabinet, and we've said the word a few times here. What is everyone's opinion on MAME cabinets? Because I know emulation is kind of a taboo subject in multi-tap, so I was a little bit curious about it. Personally speaking, because I'll go ahead and open it up, like I own my MVS. and I like consciously purchased an MBS because I wanted it. I didn't want to get a MAME cabinet, you know what I mean? But I feel like if I did get a MAME cabinet, it would either be for rail shooters, like specifically build one just for rail shooters, or at Portland Retro last year, I ended up spending a fuck ton of time on it. I saw they had a MAME pinball machine, and that thing was so sick because it was shaped like just a small pinball machine, right? And it just had a long rectangular screen and then like a screen on top of it, and you could just cycle through games. They had like 30 or 40 different pinball machines.
It was pretty badass.
And the thing had like force feedback. Like it would jostle around and things like that, you know, it felt like you were playing a pinball machine, but the thing was entirely digital. And like each one of the digital boards they had on it, like I'm sure everybody here has had some exposure to like Pinball FX or something like that, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Like they were fucking sweet boards, dude. So I feel like if I did emulate a cabinet, it would probably be a pinball machine. But what about you guys?
I wouldn't mind getting a straight up MAME machine.
Just because Avalanche Jared built one.
Yeah.
He plays the shit out of his.
Well, and especially with how affordable the Raspberry Pi is now. You can build a MAME cabinet for less than $200 if you have a little bit of woodworking skills.
God damn.
Yeah.
Lumps.
Yeah, I think in this day and age, getting a actual dedicated arcade cabinet for games like Cadillacs and Dinosaurs is like near impossible. Because most of the collectors that have those games, they keep them in pristine condition. They do all the work on them themselves, or they have people that know how to work on them. So it's not, which is funny because as we're talking about this, I'm actually listening to the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs arcade soundtrack. It's so good. So I'm like listening to it. I'm like, man, I really want to play Cadillacs and Dinosaurs now. Yeah, so like as much as I would love to get a dedicated arcade cabinet for a game like that, it's just not financially feasible at this point, like at all. And there are websites that are dedicated that you can go online and you can, buy arcade cabinets. You can buy, like you could put in almost like eBay bids, but they're like private auctions. And so you can like put your name in the, pile saying like, hey, I would like to own Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. Oh, you have the board. I'm interested in the board, like that sort of thing. So there are websites online that do that sort of thing, but like, as you were saying, it's way, way cheaper to just get a MAME arcade cabinet. My big issue with MAME is it's not 100% accurate, and there's a lot of things that can be different, such as missing music, missing graphics, or like artifacts, like problems with the visuals, sound effects missing, like all that sort of stuff.
Lumps the Clown actually did this huge write-up on like how to build your own arcade thing. I'd have to find it, but like I actually have that saved because he makes it sound like much easier than I ever thought it was until I was reading through this thing, and I was like, I know a few people that could build this cabinet pretty easy, and then all I'd have to do is set the computer and stuff up and get the sticks and everything. The idea is definitely, it's tempting.
Yeah.
What would be sweet too is if you could get someone to produce an acrylic cabinet for you that like glowed. You know what I mean? Now that would be the sickest looking thing to have in your house.
I mean, I've seen some sick looking MAME cabinets. That is true.
Yeah, I would definitely get it with the idea that it's going to be a showpiece more than anything. Because I mean, if you're going to have an arcade cabinet in your house, you're trying to show off. You know what I mean? Like there's no other, you know what I mean? Like you're trying to make it look good, and like I would put it right in front where everyone can see it. As soon as you walk down into my basement where the game room is, boom, there's like, a MAME cabinet. Like that's what I would do.
See, it's funny you say that because that's actually the exact opposite of how my basement's set up. Because I have like a long rectangular basement, and the stairs come down kind of in the middle of it, right? So I have my Neo Geo tucked on the inside on the right, where all of my like in-box stuff is all. put together, because you look on the left and it's like, oh, cool, some board games and stuff, and then you look right and you don't really see anything, but then you walk in and all of a sudden it's like, boom, 4-slot Neo Geo, fucking beautiful condition, all these hitbox like N64, my wall of amiibos and shit. So it's like literally the exact opposite of what you're saying.
Right.
Whereas, sorry, go on.
No, please, Amy, go ahead.
I was going to say, whereas like my brother, he's only got a small house anyway, and you know he's just restarted collecting his Star Wars figures and all that again. So it's just getting absolutely jam packed with all that. But his cabinet is in his front room, and you know it's facing the window, which you can easily just look in, and it's like boom, there it is. And I know he hasn't got much room, and he hasn't really got anywhere else to put it, but it was at one point in his kitchen, and then he moved it to the front room, so it's just like in the corner there, like just looking glorious. And
the nice thing is too, you can show it off and not worry about someone stealing it, because it's pretty hard thing to steal.
Shit,
yeah.
I used to have a 53-inch old school rear projection big screen TV. It was my dad's old TV, and I was using it for gaming because he gave it to me because he didn't need it anymore. So we brought it to my old apartment that I lived at with a couple friends of mine, and we would like play games on it, but not really specifically anything like arcade like. But those things are heavy.
Oh yeah.
So even like an arcade machine, like I just it'd be really difficult to get an arcade machine into my house in the first place.
Yeah, that was the experience I had. I'm going to go ahead and just gloat a little bit here. I waited for fucking ever to get my Neo Geo. Because I, like, legitimately, when you see them, you find, like, 2-slot Neo Geos, shitty condition, screen might not be working, like, $1,000, $1,200. And I waited forever to get mine, and I made the right connections and all that shit. And the guy I bought it from runs a video game store in Boulder that's extremely popular. And his wife was just like, you need to get rid of a bunch of your fucking cabinets, you know what I mean? And he's like, hey, you know, you had mentioned that you were looking for an MVS. And I was like, yes, please, let's talk about it. And so the only thing wrong with it, and this is like such a minimal complaint, it doesn't even matter, is it's a 4-slot machine, right? But it's a 2-slot marquee. Otherwise, though, completely, completely like pristine condition, original monitor. Like can't touch it; it'll kill you. You know what I mean? Like exposed wires, all that shit in the case. New memory card reader and memory cards, like working coin op, fucking flawless joysticks, put brand new in square gates. I'm not a big fan of square gates, but you know, new gates, all that shit. Can't really complain. $600.
Damn.
I one of the happiest days of my life.
You got that from the Game Force guys?
Yeah, those guys are awesome, dude. Big props to that store down in Boulder. I love those guys. Always give you a good deal, always willing to work. And just like that machine makes me so happy. Getting to learn how to actually put everything together and take care of it and just like wiping it down. There are literally times where I just hug it.
It's like owning a classic car.
Well, it's exactly awesome. Like that. Like you just turn it on and like you hear the monitor hum and winners don't use drugs and you laugh as you whip out a bong hit.
Yeah,
it's just so great. Like I just love it so much, man. And awesome. I like MAME cabinets. They're awesome, but I think about Avalanche Jared's because he's got all the fucking games ever. It's awesome, you know what I mean? But it's just like this black cabinet, nothing on it, like just jammed in the back of his
Surprised there's not just a bunch of buttholes all over it.
Yeah, you'd think so, right? Like he's got those like little computer speakers to turn it on and everything. It's great, but it's just I don't know. I really
is
love
he running his off a computer or is he using a Raspberry Pi in that thing?
It's a computer. He built like a little tower.
Gotcha. See, once we're done with the podcast, I'm literally going to look up how to build one out of a Raspberry Pi, and I'm just going to put one out on my porch. I don't give a fuck.
See, it would be a worthwhile investment, and like I'm not wildly against the idea of making one of the pinball machine ones, just because, like, don't get me wrong, I'm fucking crazy and I collect Neo Geo, but I don't have the money to buy pinball machines. You know what the fuck I'm saying,
dude? But dude, yeah, because like have you been to Pinball Jones up in Fort Collins?
Mm-mm.
It's a pretty much pinball only barcade up there. I mean, they got some other shit nowadays, and they also have like some really, really, really old like mechanical arcade games. But like, there's a workshop in the back where they actually fix pinball machines. And looking at like the parts that go underneath the actual pinball board is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, I cannot even fathom how to work on a pinball machine. Like, whoever can is like a fucking god if you're able to.
I actually have a hook for pinball machines if anybody ever needs one. I know a guy who lives in Lafayette that's what he does for a living, is he just refurbishes and resells pinball machines. So his basement has like 30 pinball machines in it. It's fucking great. Guy plays Magic the Gathering too. He doesn't even play like pinball machines. He just plays cards, dude. It's insane. But if I were to emulate, I feel
hey,
like
at least collecting arcade cabinets is cheaper than Magic the Gathering.
As somebody who does both, I can say it is arguable. I don't know. It's funny just because we're running out of time, and I really wanted to talk about this, so I don't care how shitty of a transition it is. But I guess this is what I'll try to say. The one game that I would always want to play that you can't emulate would be fucking Polybius. I really fucking want to talk about this game. That should have been my answer for the one cabinet I would want to own. Like, am I the only person in here who is like super familiar with that myth? Anybody? Yeah. Does anybody here just not know it? Geek?
No, I don't. It sounds familiar, but
it's a government brainwashing machine, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Does it actually exist though? Like, do we?
I doubt it.
That's the thing is, it's a fucking urban legend. They had a whole panel on it last day at Portland Retro last year, and I went into it, and it was the most tinfoily hat fucking.
Oh, I can imagine.
But the way the legend goes is it's fucking Portland, Oregon. Mid-80s, CIA's testing out MK Ultra when they release the Polybus machine onto an unsuspecting public. People report seeing murders and screaming and violence and mind control. MK Ultra, CIA government spookiness, and it's just it's a fucking joke, dude. Like, there's so many reports of it and so many like pictures, and you see jokes in The Simpsons and like South Park and all that. I found a ROM of it online.
I was gonna say I've played the Polybius ROM.
Yeah, and it's pretty much just Tempest.
Yeah, it's not a very good game.
Yeah, it's more or less Tempest, but it's this funniest thing in my mind because it's one of those things where nobody knows. Like, there's a documentary that's coming out with, like, nobody knows if it actually exists or not.
That's the kind of documentary that needs, like, Bill Murray in it to talk about.
Yeah, there's some good ones like that. But it's one of those things where it's intriguing because it all goes back to that idea of there was no way to know what was in an arcade. You know what I mean? Like, we were talking about it at the start of the podcast. There was no way to find out. There was no magazine. There was no internet. So all these arcades in Portland were just cycling games all the time. So, did the CIA actually put this mind control video game in there or not? And, like, you see people do pranks related to it all the fucking time, like online and shit like that. But it's so interesting to me because there's, like, video game creepypasta. Everybody knows, like, Pokemon Black or Lavender Town or fucking Ben Drowned, all that shit. But Polybius is the only real video game urban legend I can think of.
Well, aside from the Atari landfill, which has been debunked.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But even then,
that
I guess
was an urban legend.
Well, the urban legend about Michael Jackson composing for Sonic 3, which has pretty much at this point been debunked as well. Or not debunked, but it's been has been proven. Yeah, it's been proven. So
I mean, that would be it's just I find it so intriguing. Part of me really hopes that sometime in my life they'll be like, "We found it. We fucking found the machine. It exists." Or like,
and
some paperwork.
Turns out it just has a ROM running Custer's Revenge.
I don't know. I just thought it was super interesting. But we're down to the last couple of minutes, so we'll go ahead and start doing our plugs and everything like that. We'll go top to bottom in the way I can see it on Skype. So why don't we go ahead and start with you, Mr. Mike Tendo? Where can people find you? Any projects you want to plug?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, you can check me out at youtube.com/dongold or just type in "Dude, you haven't played this game," which is the actual name of the show. Yet. So, and you can check out reviews and all sorts of stuff, rants, and Things are pretty quiet right now on the channel just because I'm prepping for a Halloween episode. It's going to be pretty massive. Doing a joint collaboration with another YouTuber, so should be really cool. I also do Pixel Tunes Radio, which is a video game music podcast with my buddy Ed, and you can check that out as well. This upcoming episode is going to be coming out next week, and everybody should check that out if you're a fan of video game music, because we got a exclusive interview with Eiku Mizutani, who we're doing an episode on. He was a Natsume composer, so really cool. We just finished recording it tonight, so it should be up next Wednesday. So you can check that out at pixeltunesradio.com, as well as on the YouTube channel.
Hell yeah. Very nice. Well, what about you, Mr. West? I know one thing you're going to want to plug, so.
All right, well, you can find me at YouTube, Westapo. It's just like Gestapo, but with a W.
Westapoo.
And can't you get anyone's shit right there?
Right? Honestly.
And then you got everyone else saying that shit too. Anyway. Got
Bullied.
fucking Daria calling me that shit too. Lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. Westapo, it's just like Gestapo but with a W. I just today released a 500 subscriber special video where I actually challenged myself to cover 10 games in 5 minutes. So I had a ton of fun with making that video. It was a lot of fun making it. So I don't know. I think it's pretty entertaining. You should check it out. So and then yeah, I got all kinds of stuff planned for Halloween. So can't wait for October.
October's going to be sweet, and personally, I also did want to say congratulations on the 500 subs. I know it's closer to 6 now, but that's a big milestone, and it feels good, and that video was sweet, too. I'm going to be honest, it made me kind of want to do one, just because it looked really fun. Like, it looked like you had a good time. You know what I mean?
No, same here. Like, I was watching your video, Wes, and I was like, yo, I kind of want to do that now.
Yeah, it's, like, really, really hard to just not fucking do it, but definitely check out that video.
Go for it.
Check out that video if you haven't seen it. Where can people find you, Bane?
Mostly on Twitter. I write like a bunch of different places, and I don't bother looking me up on YouTube. I have a channel, but I mostly just use it to upload my streams and shit right now. And I don't know. I've been posting a lot more stuff on like my actual like Patreon page, just because it's easier to draw a little bit more attention. So, you know. That's about it. Follow me on Twitter. It's at Steven Wilds, WILDS.
Also, definitely check out the streams. I try to make them when I see you guys are on, and I had a lot of fun in the Dead Space stream. Had a lot of fun in the Duke Nukem stream. Like, they're good times. So definitely check those out.
Thanks, man. We try to stream every Tuesday or Wednesday. It just depends when we have time. It's
pretty easy to tell when I'm there because I turn into quite the chatty Cathy.
Hey, we appreciate it.
I have a good time. They're fun. What about you, Amy?
YouTube is where most of my content is, and at the moment I'm just streaming mostly. But my YouTube is youtube.com/geeketiquettegame. And there you just find like lots of like retro stuff, mostly PS1 games. And as I say, at the moment I'm streaming mostly, so I tend to multi-stream to Twitch and YouTube at the same time. So my Twitch is just Geek Etiquette. My Twitter is Geek Etiquette YT. I think I even struggle to say my own freaking name. I don't know why I picked it. I don't know why. But yeah, that's probably the best way to like contact me. I'm usually always floating around Twitter, and you can just like say hi or whatever, and that's mostly it. But yeah, upcoming projects, probably won't be doing anything recording wise until I get back, which won't be until the end of November. So at the moment I'm just kind of like building up on things, catching up with like the admin side, the boring stuff, like subtitles and shit like that. But yeah, there'll be a few things that I want to try and do. I want to try and mix it up on the channel. So watch this space, I guess.
Yeah, and really, you have been streaming a lot. I know I mentioned it with Bane, but it's pretty easy to find you guys doing that, and it's a good time. So
yeah,
that's probably the way to do it if you guys are trying to find Amy. And then what about you, Mr. Dubious?
So I'm Dubious Gaming online on the YouTubes, Dubious Gaming on Twitter, and Dubious Gaming here on Twitch. And I recently released a review on an indie game called Turmoil, which actually I'm getting a bunch of feedback from the developer on, which is pretty cool. And I am currently working on a 2,000 subscriber special, which I was streaming, capturing the footage last night, and I will also probably be doing maybe 30 minutes after this podcast is over if anyone wants to head over to my Twitch channel.
You ought to put the link down here, man.
The link?
I believe it's Twitch/Dubious Gaming, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yes. Yeah. And if I could put links in the chat, I would.
Oh. What is it again? Because
Twitch.tv/Dubious Gaming.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, and if he ends up playing Overwatch tonight, I might be joining him too. You never know. That tends to happen late at night. We like to tank some elo, you know what I'm saying? It's a good time. As far as myself, it's easiest to reach me at Twitter, over at NA1i. I'm always on there. I'm always super active. My phone goes off and I immediately hear it. It's a great time, so you can reach me there. I don't actually have a YouTube channel, so you can't find me on any one of those, though I do have a couple things I'm working on for the Multitapped channel. Maybe one more if Wes really says it's okay to do videos like that, because holy shit did it look fun, and I want to
go for it, man.
Too. Yeah, so there might be a couple coming to the Multitapped page here in a minute. But you can find me streaming 4 days a week with my buddy Veritech, either on his channel at twitch.tv/VeritechGG or over at mine, twitch.tv/HOTS1i, HOTS1i for Heroes of the Storm. And then also, since I can officially announce it, if anybody happens to be in California, I will be with the Guardians speaking at the World of Podcasts the day before BlizzCon. So if anybody will be down there at that event, I'll be talking, doing footage, interviews, stuff like that. So if you want to come down and see me there, that is another place I will be. Also, do the Guardians, which is a weekly Overwatch podcast that is on Fridays, 6 p.m. Mountain. So if you like Overwatch and you want to find out anything about patch, competitive news, anything like that, that's another good place to find me. Though, now that we've wrapped it up, I did also want to thank all of our listeners, everybody who caught us live on the stream, everybody who's catching us on YouTube and iTunes, and I want to say Spreaker, right, Dubious? I'm terrible at this. Is that where we upload?
Podbean, but our account is actually inactive at the moment because I shut it down because I ran out of money.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, that'll be up again shortly. No worries. Yeah,
that'll be live again at some point.
Yes, sooner than later, worry not. But definitely on YouTube, and thank you guys for catching us live. To all of my guests, really, it was great having everybody here, particularly Mike Tendo, Bane, and Geek, because it's just pretty rare to get you guys on here.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely fantastic. It's very much appreciated.
Thanks,
and
we
will catch you guys next week. Same great time, same great place.